Hey everyone, welcome back to On Purpose, the #1 health podcast for self, work, and love. Thank you so much for being here. I'm so grateful that you take time out of your days, evenings, wherever you are, to invest in yourself and personal growth. This is On Purpose. You're in the right place. And today's guest is someone that I can't wait to talk to. I'm always fascinated by people's meaningful experiences, unique perspectives, and backgrounds. And today's guest will not disappoint. Today's guest is absolutely incredible. I'm excited to hear about her perspectives and viewpoints on a few things that you really want to find out about too. And her background is phenomenal. She's an American TV personality. She's a New York Times best-selling author. She's an executive producer, a businesswoman, and an actress. Her name is Lala Anthony. Lala, thank you so much for being here.
I am so happy to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh no, thank you.
This is exciting.
I know, and I'm so grateful because we literally got introduced to each other recently.
I know.
And we're making this happen already.
I know, but I feel like we've known each other forever. We're just like, hey, it's a great connection and a great feeling, and I'm happy to be here.
Absolutely. And I'm just warning the audience, we were just about to get under a cover and go to sleep because it's very zen in this room.
It's so zen in here. It's so zen. I was like, I just need a robe and a blanket.
I love it. We'll arrange for it afterwards.
Okay, perfect.
If you have time. But you're on a busy schedule right now.
Yes.
You've been around promoting Power, sharing the word of Power. Let's start with that. Tell us a bit about that.
So Power, I've been on the show for 6 seasons, and season 6 is premiering in August. So we made a big announcement today on Good Morning America that it premieres in August. It's also the final season of Power, which people are disappointed about. I know. I feel the same way. So, this season is going to be just a roller coaster ride, which is what Power is. It never disappoints, and our fans are super excited, and we're excited, for the final season and just to kind of see where it takes all the characters and stuff.
Absolutely. Well, that's what's happening today. I want to go all the way back to the beginning of you when you were 15 and you get this break at Hot 97 in Atlanta. Tell me about why that experience was so meaningful to you and how that was such a great start for you.
So it started because I've always just loved music, and I've loved hip-hop music from before I could remember. And at 15, I remember hearing that the Wu-Tang Clan, they were opening up a clothing store in Atlanta, and I had just moved to Atlanta. And I was like, oh, I got to go see the Wu-Tang Clan. Like, I got to get there, in line like everybody else, waiting, excited. And I saw these people like putting up posters and giving out flyers, and I was like, what do you guys do? And they were like, oh, we're interns for a radio station. And I was like, that's a cool job. I would do something like that. And they were like, well, here's the guy's number. You have to like call or email or something. So I ended up emailing, and he told me that you had to be 18 to get the job. So I went back to the hood, got a fake ID, said I was 18, and got the job as an intern. And that's kind of what started my career in radio, TV, acting, producing, film. But it all started with, my love of music, my love of hip hop. So I'm always just so gracious to music in general because that's how my career started.
I love that. Kids, go get a fake ID if you're too young to get a job. No, I love that. But sometimes what it takes is just that passion, that persistence. Exactly. You weren't going to take no for an answer.
I wasn't going to take no for an answer. I wasn't going to let 2 or 3 years get in my way. So I was like, no, I'm doing this. And it worked. And eventually I was honest and told the truth. But by then I had proven myself as a hard worker and dedicated and, secured the job. And also at that time at the radio station, Ludacris was an intern as well. He was going by the name of Chris Lova, and he had been there, a bit before me, and we hit it off and we started a radio show together. But it's incredible when I sit back now and just see how far his journey has come. And then along with mine, like he used to just talk about, I'm going to be this famous rapper one day. People are going to buy my album. I'm going to be an actor. I'm going to do all these things. And to actually see how you can manifest something just by believing it and saying it, and then it really happens, is just such a fascinating thing to watch.
I love that. And what's the difference that you've seen now that you're saying tracking your career, even Ludacris, who you worked with? What have you seen is the difference between people saying things are going to happen and then actually making them come true, whether it's manifestation or belief? What has been the difference? Because I'm sure you've heard a lot of people say stuff too and it didn't happen for them.
I mean, I definitely think a lot of it is the work, putting in the work. It's really easy to just say, okay, I want to do this, but there's so much work behind it, and there's so many people or things that will get in the way of, you becoming whatever. And a lot of us get so discouraged. Like by the time the third door is closed in your face, you're like, you know what? I give up, or maybe this is not it. And a lot of it is, timing and, things just kind of falling in place. For me, it's definitely a strong belief in God, and it's about being blessed, because I know none of this would happen without any of that. So, things just started kind of clicking. But I think with some people, we give up a little bit too fast, or as soon as it gets hard, that's when we're like, okay, I'm done. I can't do this. And I think some of the best things come right after fear, or right after, those hard moments. That's when you finally get your breakthroughs. But some of us never get to see that because we stop too early.
Yeah, you're so right. Yeah. Most of us stop too early.
Yeah, I think so.
You're so right. Whether it's that third door, fourth door, you never know whether it's going to be the 7th or the 70th. Yeah. But you got to keep going. What's been the fuel in your life that's kept you pushing in those moments?
So I'm super competitive. So I'm just like, no one's going to tell me no. I'm going to do this no matter what. And I have felt the way we just talked about when it comes to my acting career, because for so long it's like, okay, Lala from MTV, or Lala the radio host. And when I wanted to transition into acting, I just felt like I wasn't being taken seriously because I was looked at all these other things. And I always talk to people about not allowing yourself to be put in a box, because people would love to put you in a box. Okay, you're, the host of this, that's all you can do. You're on the radio, that's all you can do. And I'm like, I don't understand that. Like, I'm in acting class. I'm taking it seriously. I have a passion for it. Why can't I do that as well? And so, it's all about breaking barriers. And to this day, I still have to do that, because I'm still Lala from MTV. I'm still Lala the radio host. I'm still Lala with all these other things behind my name. And I just want to be looked at as Lala the actress who does an incredible job on, the show Power and other things I've done, and continue to grow from there.
Yeah, and I love that. That's such practical advice for people today, because whatever our boxes are, everyone has them.
Yeah.
Everyone has them. And whether it's boxes from your past, or from even something like, at one point it felt like your biggest break, but then it becomes your box.
It's so, right? That is true. And that's how I felt with MTV. Like, I have such a respect for MTV, and it did so much for my career. And at that point I was like, I'm an MTV VJ. Like, when I was a VJ, I was, 19 years old, and that's what everyone wanted to do. That was when they were searching the whole country to hire a VJ, and I became one. And I remember it being the biggest thing. And then as I was exiting from MTV, it became the box, because then it was just you're a VJ. That's all you can do. You can do nothing else. And I just had to continue to fight through that. And I'm glad that I didn't give up, because there were many times where I was started believing, well, maybe that is all that I can do. And maybe after MTV, that was it. I reached my peak, and it was great, and that's all that's in store for me. But I had to believe that there was more and kind of push through that.
Yeah, I love that. I personally find that so inspiring, especially because you've done it.
Yeah.
Now when I'm hearing you say it, and you've done that, and you've broken out, and I was saying earlier, you've been a New York Times bestselling author. You've written 2 books, 2, right? Yeah,
yes.
two huge books. You've been out there. You're an actress. You're an executive producer now. I feel like you've really done that. And so for anyone who's listening right now, just don't buy into the box.
Don't buy into the box
that people keep.
Don't buy into the box. I'm always talking about that, and it's so important. You can do more than one thing and actually be great at it. Who's to say you can only do this and only do that? There's no such thing, and there's no rules in life. There's just no rules to any of this. We make our own rules, and that's what we have to continue to remind ourselves of.
Did you find, though, that when you were doing that and building it, you were mastering one thing and then building the next? Is that kind of how it went?
For me, I would find I always said, when it started feeling like a job, I knew I was ready for the next thing. When it started feeling okay, I got to do this again today, and I wasn't enjoying it as much, that was my trigger to say, okay, well, what's next? So for me, starting in radio, okay, what's next? TV, that seems like the transition. Okay, now I'm on TV, I'm a host, what's next? Okay, acting, that seems like the next transition. Okay, what's next? Producing, writing, whatever. So I would just know when it started feeling like a job and I was losing my excitement for it. So now I'm in a place where I'm super excited about acting. I'm super excited about producing and my clothing line and, writing another book and creating my own content. So that's what all my energy is going into, right now.
Absolutely. Is this part of your clothing line?
No, I wish it was. It's a denim clothing line that's available pretty much everywhere. So, shout out to everybody that supports that. We're doing really well in the denim space.
Yeah, no, I love that. I think that's such a powerful lesson to share, because I think so many of us have passions, have desires, and we're like, oh, but I haven't studied that, or I never learned that, or I don't know anyone who's done that. And so when people see like people like yourself, then they can break out. But tell me one life lesson or career tip that you learned from each industry, because I think there are very few people in the world that you can sit with who've done a lot of different things successfully and at a high level. So tell me one thing that you learned from, let's say, radio. Let's start there. What was one thing that radio taught you?
So radio taught me to be confident in my personality, because radio, no one sees you. So you have to lead with your personality, which is your voice and what you're talking about. You have to draw people in with that. There's no antics of, let me show my face, let me do this. This was before, podcasts that are being recorded and all this stuff. You were just in a radio station and people didn't have a clue how you look. So it was all about what you were projecting on those airwaves and how you draw them in. And that's where I think I gained my confidence in believing in myself and feeling like my personality was enough, because that's what was driving people to listen to my show. So that's what I learned from radio.
Okay, awesome. Tell us what you learned from being an actress.
From being an actress, I just learned that you can't fake it. Like, you have to really take it seriously. And I'm still in classes, and I'm always asking questions about acting and learning more. An actor's job is never done. Like, you never know everything. And then probably in most things, but like in radio, I got to a point where I knew a lot. I knew how to work the board. I knew how to do the breaks. I kind of had it all figured out. There wasn't too much that I couldn't do. But in acting, every character is different. So you never get to a point where you're like, oh, I've mastered this thing. I can do it all. I mean, even my character on Power changes so much that it becomes so challenging for me to go through all her transitions and changes. So you have to be disciplined. You have to take it seriously. And an actor's work is never done. I mean, I'm in acting class with some amazing actors that you're like, you don't need to be in acting class. And it's like, no, you constantly have to work on your craft and sharpen your skill. And that's what I learned for acting. It's definitely been the tougher of my career choices.
Absolutely. No, it doesn't sound easy at all. And this one's going to be interesting because I'm writing my first book right now.
Okay.
So I was going to ask you, what did you learn from writing 2 big books?
So I would definitely say the books, I learned that the books became like therapy for me. It became my own therapy session because I was able to just talk about feelings and emotions that maybe I had never talked about before, things that I had kept bottled in before. And I felt like during the process of writing the book, it became very therapeutic to me. It became like a therapy session, and I wasn't afraid to share with the world. And it worked. It worked. You know, people really seem to like the books, but I think for anyone writing a book, and including yourself, people appreciate honesty. They appreciate authenticity. They appreciate that we all have flaws. Like, none of us are perfect, and I didn't want to paint this perfect picture because I'm not perfect. And I think people really related to that.
Yeah, and I love that about you. I've really loved that when we were prepping for this interview and my team and I were getting together. One of the things I do love about you is that you're so raw and open and authentic.
Thank you.
And even today when you walked into the room, like, I felt your energy. I was like, this is so nice, you know, like when you're meeting someone for the first time, even though you do feel like, I feel like I've known you too.
Right.
But it's like, that's such a comforting feeling. And I think you really give that to people.
Thank you.
And you give that to people through all your work.
Thank you.
Even when I see you in movies, I'm like, oh, she could be my friend. Like,
and it's
like, you know, you're a friend of the main character. And then you're like, you know, I'm just like, oh, she could be my friend. And I think that's a very unique talent.
I appreciate you saying that, and I do appreciate that. And I found that in this industry and in this world, like, people want to work with people that they like. People want to work with people that are nice, and sometimes we forget that. Like, I can get a job over someone who might be way more talented than me because I'm going to be nice to work with. People are going to want to come to work and work with me. So for people out there listening, you know, it's just such a small thing, but kindness really does go a long way, and kindness can be that deciding factor that sets you apart from somebody else. So I try to never forget that.
Yeah, that's beautiful. So when you, I'm bringing this up in context, you were 15, you were at Hot 97, which is an amazing place. When I was 15, I was a paper boy. So I used to go deliver papers around. So I used to like 5 streets in my area. I used to put my headphones on, and the only person I'd listen to at that time was 50 Cent.
Oh my
And so, I would sit
just
there.
left him. He was at Good Morning America.
Oh, no way. Yeah. And so I'd put the headphones on, and it was the Get Rich or Die Trying album.
So funny.
And I would sit there, and I would know every word, and I would go and deliver my papers listening to 50 Cent. What's he like to work with?
Oh, he's amazing. I've known him since the radio and MTV days. So this is you're talking almost 15-year relationship now, of knowing each other, and he's so talented. I knew about the show before it came into existence, and he talked about it and how big it was going to be, and everything he said came to fruition. And that's another example of speaking it, believing it, and doing the hard work behind it and seeing it happen. So I'm always super grateful to him for believing in me and giving me an opportunity, because it's been great. It's been really great.
That's awesome, right? It's so nice for us to see, powerhouses coming together, people collaborating. I think it's such an important message for people everywhere.
Yeah.
When they see people coming together, doing things together, rather than like we're all on our own islands and our own towers.
Right.
And we don't kind of see each other.
Yeah.
But to see that, I think is such a powerful message.
No,
too.
it definitely is. And I think, that kind of energy feeds off each other, because when you're around someone that's powerful or successful, like, it motivates you and you want to go harder. So I like to surround myself with people like that keep me motivated, and I never feel like I'm doing enough, even though I barely sleep. I slept 2 hours last night. I just am constantly moving. I'm also a mom, and that takes precedence over everything. But I love just being around people that motivate me to continue to be better.
I love that. How have you done that? You brought that up, and I want to dive into that. How have you done that? You've continually evolved your career. You're learning. You're going to acting classes, and you're a mother. How have you done that? Because I get a lot of parents listening to the podcast.
Right.
A lot of people asking, hey, how do I balance my passion and my purpose and my side hustle and all this kind of stuff? So what are your thoughts on that?
So I get asked that question a lot. And I think for me, I've been blessed to have a great family structure that can help me, be able to do multiple different things. But my son is always and will always be my top priority. So I think you have to prioritize, what's important. And I realized that we can't just do it all at one time. So I've gotten good at okay, this week, this is outside of Cayenne, my son, this is my priority. I'm going to focus on the clothing line stuff. I'm going to focus on power. I'm going to I just have to prioritize, because there's so much going on. If I'm trying to do it all in one day, I just don't feel like I do the best job at any of it. So I think prioritizing is the first step.
Yeah, spot on. Yeah, you can have it all, just not all at the same time.
That is very true. And I've always believed that. And as far as balance is concerned, balance is a funny thing, because I feel like balance changes, and at different points, something is losing out. So if I'm super, super about the career and that, maybe it's a little less time with Cayenne. If I'm all about Cayenne, then it's less time with the career. So some things, it's like a constant, tug of war, but you find a way to figure it out.
Yeah, and I think we put too much pressure on ourselves.
Yeah, we do.
Because we're like, oh my God, everything's going to be equal this week. I'm going to spend equal amount of time on this, and my kid, and my project, and the clothing line. Yeah. And you're going to fail at that.
You're going to fail. And I think we also put ourselves on these timelines. Okay, it could be even an age timeline. By 30, I should be married with 2 kids and own a house and this, and by 35 I should have this. And then when you're looking and maybe life isn't panning out that way, all of a sudden you feel like a failure. You feel like you haven't met these timelines. And I think we cannot put those pressures on ourselves. I mean, people have started careers way later in life. Now people are starting families way later in life. People are getting married later in life, and marriage isn't even a priority to a lot of people anymore. It's more about, career and being independent, different things. So you just kind of got to do what's best for you, and don't feel like it's a timeline you have to put yourself on, or a checkbox. Okay, 20, I did this, 25, this, 30, this. You just kind of got to just let it flow, and everybody moves at a different pace.
Yeah, it's again not buying into the boxes. It's just another type of box.
Exactly.
And those pressures are the worst, because you're forcing yourself to make big decisions based on a timeline that some random person invented.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
You're forcing yourself to make the biggest decisions of life, career decisions, love decisions, having children decisions.
Right. And the world continues to change over the years. So a timeline that might have made sense 10 years ago now doesn't make sense. We have social media now. We have different access to different things. So people are just moving differently than even 10 years ago, even 5 years ago. So it constantly changes. So these timelines are so out of date to me now. You just got to kind of, again, I think it's important to encourage people to move at their own pace.
Yeah, I love that. That's beautiful. I've made so many videos on that subject, because it's so, so prevalent in society where everyone's defining their lives based on others' timelines. And another thing I make a lot of videos on, which I love that you comment on so openly, you've written books about, is relationships.
Yes.
Because I see so many people struggling with relationships. Partly that's because we only post the best stuff. We only post the stuff that looks nice, and therefore when we look at everyone else on Instagram, it looks like everyone's in love, and I'm the
having
only
the best time.
Yeah, and
I'm the only one that's like in a fuck themselves.
Yeah,
in a messed up situation.
Yeah, exactly. Like that's how we feel. Like we feel like, oh, I'm the only one who's like struggling or not in love or not with someone or whatever it may be. What are some of the biggest relationship lessons that you've learned that you think are really important for people to hear?
I think that, you have to focus on your own relationship and not worry about what everyone's doing. And if you don't have a relationship, that doesn't mean you're less of a person. It just means you're focusing on something else. And I feel like everything happens when it does. And that's why they say doing it for the gram. Everything on the gram looks picture perfect and spectacular. You got filters, you got Facetune, you got this, you got that. Everyone's just like stepping out of Vogue magazine at Instagram. Like, it's not real life. Instagram is to showcase for most people, your best moments. For me, I show a little bit of everything, but people want to showcase their best moments. And it's not real, so you can't compare to that. And only you know what's going on in your relationship, in your situation. I think that's what matters. And as long as you're happy, that's ultimately what matters. Now, if you're not happy, it shouldn't be based on what everyone else is doing. It should be based on what's going on in your relationship. And if you're not happy, then that's something for you to figure out. But one way to easily not be happy is to be constantly comparing yourself to another relationship that you see on Instagram. And you don't even know what's going on. It takes 1 second to smile for a picture or put your arm around me, Jay. Let's act like we're so in love. And as soon as they say stuff like, I hate you, and like, you don't know what's going on behind the scenes. So never compare yourself or feel like, I have a lot of friends too that will tell their partners like, I wish you were more like so-and-so, or I wish you acted more like so-and-so based on a social media picture or, just what they see on Instagram. I think that's a little unfair. And I'm not saying everyone's unhappy. You do have people that are in amazing relationships and posting and just living this blissful life, and, more power to them. But that's not across the board. That's not everybody.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great principle, never to compare what you have going on to anyone else, because you don't even know the story.
Exactly.
You're only seeing 1% of it.
Exactly.
So there's no point of starting there. Absolutely. And another thing that I get a lot of my audience reaching out about is breakups. So many people going through breakups. It's kind of like they feel like it consumes their whole life. We've all been through breakups.
Right.
Like, what are your thoughts around that? When people are going through a breakup, so what have you seen as the best lessons for healing and moving forward?
I think, breakups are always tough when you love somebody, you give somebody your heart, and it doesn't work out. But I'm always an avid believer that, everything happens for a reason. And while it's going on, it doesn't make sense. But how many times have we looked back later and say, oh, that's why that happened? Or I wouldn't have been here if that didn't happen. I wouldn't have met this person if that didn't happen. Like, you have to believe that things work out the way they're supposed to. And for me, the best way to deal with that is, I keep myself busy, dive into something else, whether it's your children or work or your passion, and just keep good energy around you, and that'll help you kind of get through. But sitting around alone or moping or like the world is coming to an end, that's not going to help. I'm always like, stay busy, stay active, just start doing a lot of shit. Just start going, because that's the best way to keep your mind busy. And ultimately you'll start seeing that every day it gets like a little bit easier.
Yeah, no, and I think you're right. I think when you're dealing with something and you get active about it, and you don't just sit there and like overthink and procrastinate and then just overanalyze.
Right.
You start moving, and then things start coming up.
It's so true.
And then you just have more momentum to deal with them. Rather than if you just sit there, you can just literally feel like everything's closing in on you.
You definitely can. You definitely can. So I would definitely say, stay moving, and in the end, it all somehow makes sense. And again, when you look back, you're like, oh, that's why that happened, or that's why that didn't work out. I felt like, I've had breakups where I was like, this is the end. Like, I won't be able to wake up after this. Like, my life is over after this. And now looking back, it's like, I see why it happened that way. And maybe I wouldn't be where I am now if I stayed in certain situations that, were holding me back for whatever reason. So it all works out in the end. It definitely does.
I get real, like when I'm around you today, I'm getting a bit of like a spiritual frequency. It's like you're praying on some.
Well, I will say, Jay, you'll like this. I just got back from Hippocrates in West Palm Beach, which is like a spiritual meditation center. So I went there for a week. I try to do that or an ashram every week. So I'm kind of fresh.
Every week?
No, every year.
Oh,
every year. So I'm kind of fresh off that, and you're probably feeling a lot of that because Hippocrates is all about like mental clarity and spiritual clarity and just kind of unplugging and getting in touch with yourself. And I think in this industry, it's just go, 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 that it's nice to like not be on the phone, not be on Instagram, and just really work on you. So I was there for a week, and I always find it to be life-changing and kind of set me on the path for what the rest of the year is going to look like.
That's beautiful. What clarity did you gain from that? What was it that stayed with you so far? I know it's only been a week.
Yeah, it definitely stays with me every time I do it, is that like, you're not missing anything. You know, when you're not on Instagram or answering every email, like the world is still standing. Everything's okay. Like you're not missing anything. Okay, you might not know who wore what yesterday, but does that really matter in the big scheme of things? So it allows you to appreciate more of the moments of just sitting outside and breathing the air, looking at trees, you know, sitting and having conversations with people. How often do people even talk anymore? We were at dinner last night and we were literally like, put your phones down, because everyone's just on their phone and no one's enjoying each other or having conversation. So at Hippocrates, you're forced to do that, and you're also forced to mingle with people that in your life you may have never crossed paths with, people from all over the world, people dealing with illnesses from, you know, cancer to addictions to all kind of things. And you're sitting there and you're realizing that everyone is so similar and dealing with so many of the same things. So I was just inspired by a lot of those relationships and conversations that I had there, and I really felt like I made friends there that I'll have for the rest of my life.
Oh, that's beautiful. Yeah, I do the same thing. So I don't know if I've told you before, if you knew that I lived as a monk for 3 years.
Okay, I didn't know that.
So I actually go back to India to live as a monk every year for 21 days again. So I did it for 3 years when I was 22 to 25. Okay. And then now every single year I go back for 21 days to an ashram.
So when is your next one?
January, usually every January to start my year. And then it's the same thing. It's like I go away for 3 weeks and my team's like, are you sure you want to go away for 3 weeks? What's going to happen? I'm like, no, trust me. Like my spiritual conviction is so high that if this commitment goes well and correctly, then everything else will fall into place. See that? But if you don't get this foundation right, everything else will fall apart. And
another thing, you'll always find that it never feels like the right time. No. You can always talk yourself out of it. It's another podcast, another movie, another this, and it's like, now's not the right time. But if you don't put your foot down and make it the right time, it's never going to be the right time, because I can always find more work to do. I can always find more to put on Cayenne's schedule. I can always find more, but I had to just stop and say, I'm taking this week for myself to unplug and just do what I need to do. And I even felt like a week wasn't even enough. Usually at Hippocrates, it's the same thing as a 3-week program. Right. I couldn't do the 3 weeks, but when I was there, I could see how people easily do the 3 weeks. Like, you feel like you need that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And whenever I've done that, I've always realized that even if I've missed out on big things, when I come back, better things come to me.
Yeah, for sure.
And I've noticed that every time, and I'm not just saying that as a cliche, it's real. Like, every time I go there, I make that commitment, and I know I'm missing out on a few things, but as soon as I come back, better doors open up.
Right.
And
that is so cool that you do that.
We got to talk more about that.
You see my eyes. I'm into that. I'm like, do you ever take someone with you? I'm like, I want some details.
Exactly. Really cool. Yeah, we should go together. I used to do retreats to India every year.
Wow.
And take people, because I wanted people to have the same experience of disconnecting, being somewhere where you're not familiar with. And when you go somewhere where you don't know anyone and no one knows you, the growth is just incredible.
And that's how I felt at Hippocrates. Like, no one knew who I was. I was just like everyone else and just connecting, and it was so cool. It was about the last day that people started to like, wait, are you? But up until then, it was just like, just learning people and being my authentic self and not like feeling like I had to be on per se. And that was just such an incredible experience.
Awesome. So we've got our final 5 questions that we do on every episode.
Okay.
These are our rapid fire. So you can either answer with 1 word, 3 words, or 1 sentence. Like, that's it. No more than that.
Okay.
I'm giving you the barriers because sometimes guests like to share more. Okay. So the first question I'm going to ask you is, what feels like your biggest accomplishment so far?
My son.
Oh, that's beautiful. I love that. Okay. Next question. What's the first thing you do when you wake up?
Thank God.
Nice.
For another day.
Awesome. What's the last thing you do before you go to bed?
Thank God for another day.
Love it. That's beautiful. What is a mantra that you live by?
Love yourself from the inside out. And that's something my dad taught me, but loving yourself.
You can tell us more if you want.
Okay, loving yourself from the inside out. And I want to give that to our listeners here today because it's something that I live by and it's something that's so important. You know, we're so worried about the outer, the clothes, the makeup, the this, or how do I look, that we forget to love ourselves from the inside out. And to me, that's where it all starts with. So you could see people like with whack clothes, hair looking crazy, but for some reason they're like shining in the room and super confident and feel great because they're loving themselves from the inside out. It has nothing to do with all this exterior stuff. So I have to always remind myself to love myself from the inside out.
Awesome. And 5th and final question, if you could get everyone in the world to do 1 habit or 1 practice every single day for 30 days, what would it be?
I think it would be to look in the mirror and give yourself a compliment. I just don't think we do that enough. Like, we spend so much time wanting to get outside recognition or, you know, social media recognition or likes or comments. Like, we have to love ourselves and give ourselves that love before we expect to get it from anyone else or, you know, feel validated because it comes from everyone else. So that's the first thing I could think of.
I love that. No one's ever said that before. That's awesome. I love the answer. Love it. You're amazing. We're going to have to do another one of these.
I would love
and
to.
Go deep.
Yeah, no, I got to hear about this India trip. Like, I have a lot more that we should definitely talk about. But I am so glad that you brought me here today.
Yeah, me too. Thank you so much for coming on as well. Everyone, thank you for listening, watching, whichever one you've been doing, whether you're walking your dog, whether you're driving to and from work, or whether you're at work right now and you wanted a bit of a break. Thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure you share this. Tag me and Lala with your best insights, the best quotes that she said, anything that she said that resonated with you. Feel free to tag both of us on Instagram. Share those insights. Spread the message. Thank you so much for listening and watching.
Yes, thank you guys so much. I'm at Lala, so mine is super easy. So definitely find me on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, all that good stuff. I'm dying to hear from everybody. I love interacting and